Hey, you awesome people!
You are watching
Midlife
Midlife Spices.
Spices.
In this channel, we're going to be discussing anything that might interest all of you who are between 30 to 50 years old. Although we don't mind those who are younger or older, to tune in and join the discussion.
It could be anything from the dilemma of changing career, moving to another country, parenting, adult friendships, and many more.
Potato.
Rice.
So the next question is, how did you ever adapt to the local customs? Or do you ever do that? Like, what do you think, Fransiska?
How is the good word? I'm gonna say the number one thing is I don't want to underestimate or under I don't know, reviewing Asia, but we really have to lower our expectation in a lot of things. And we also have to remind ourselves that it is the only way for us to enjoy our life here. And I actually see my way of adapting in this country just like driving. The first 2 years was very scary. I mean, I've been driving for more than 10 years, but the first year driving here, it scared me to death.
Right.
How the people are so, there's no rule. They just go left, go right, all the honking. So it scared me to death in the beginning. But then at the end of the day, the third year, I started to drive like them. So I guess that's how I, kind of see how my adaptation to the way of living here is. So you got scared in the beginning?
How long did it take you though? To kind of feel like you're fully Indonesian again, kind of thing.
Around 2 years, just exactly.
Okay, that's not so long. Yeah.
Around 2 years, I actually adapted back to way of living in Indonesia. So
all right.
Yeah. What about you?
Oh, me. I don't think that it took me so long to adapt. It's kind of like or maybe like I haven't really been like in the real life of Indonesia. I don't know. But my policy of going to any country is like, when you're in Rome, do as the Romans, right? So like, it's the same for me. Like, when I went back to Indonesia, I will kind of like be mindful of like not behaving like, oh, I just came back from like the abroad, so like this is my customs kind of thing. It's like, I mean, I kind of like, I have to understand, even like inside, I might be astonished, for some, family members' comments or something, right? But I gotta bite it and like kind of like act normal and be like, all right, you know what, sure, okay, I guess like I have a different point of view now, now that I have seen other stuff like out there, and like I couldn't agree with that anymore. But it's just like graciously agreeing to disagree, that kind of thing, trying to. So like I kind of like try to see like the positives of living there, and like, whatever that is a bit annoying, like I say, okay, how do I get around this problem? So like, I just live with it,
Exactly.
So like I don't know how long exactly it took me to like adapt, but like I never felt like excessively difficult. Like I try to make it enjoyable, like wherever I stay in. So even though I mentioned in the first question, like with like the lack of freedom and the gossips and the inefficiency, was terrible, but like but at the end of the day, I kind of like get around that problem and say, all right, you know what, like I know the whole gossipy thing, so I'll be extra careful, not to be spotted like doing things that will freak out my family, for example, or like it's like just kind of like finding ways to do that, right?
I guess the fact that you move around a lot makes you maybe adapt easier than other people. Maybe it has a lot to do with that.
Probably, yeah. If that is so, then like, I'm pretty lucky then,
Yeah, yeah.
But I do feel at home, like, immediately, like pretty much like within few months, and I feel just like, oh yeah, I'm a local kind of thing.
Oh, okay, that's pretty
Yeah.
fast.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
I still have some friends who, are still, complaining about the same thing that they did 10 years ago. So I was like,
Mm.
hey, you can't live like that. It'll be like so, right? So
You mean
it'll be
they
so
moved back to Jakarta and they still feel that way, huh?
yeah, yeah. There's still some people who
Yeah.
actually are still complaining about it. So
Um, People do complain, but like, do they actually enjoy their life though? That's the question.
there are some that still haven't, and they still wish that can
Mm.
return, but their situation doesn't allow them to. So I guess those are, different group of people who actually don't,
Yeah,
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 can
yeah.
relocate.
Oh, I'm sure there are people who actually like it and the ones who don't. And I mean, it's I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's
Yeah,
just uh personal choice,
personal
personal
decision. Yeah.
preference. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. I
Okay.
see, I see. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess
Okay.
next I
Mm.
want to know: have you ever
Mm.
regretted your decision returning? Well, but you're no longer in Indonesia. But when you
Mm.
did you ever regret your decision
Mm.
to return? If yes, why? If no, why?
Okay, this is quite an interesting question, because it's like, I'm hovering between yes and no, right? It's
Okay.
like a no, because I can enjoy myself like wherever I go most of the time. I've never been to a country where I say, "Oh, I regret coming here. It's so terrible."
Mm,
Um, but on the other hand, like, there's also a kind of regret for loss of time, because I was still trying to like figure out where do I want to, like, start
spend the rest
creating
of
my
your life.
home base.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like, where's my home base? I mean, I can travel all my life, but I'd like one home base where I can call at the end of the day. I'll always like go home there, because that's where, you know, everything is.
Mm-hmm.
And like, my parents at the time, like, of course, expected me so much to return for good, and they have this, like, big dream of me living in a big house together with them, and like have a husband, kids, blah blah blah, right?
Mm-hmm.
um but then it's kind of like, I wasn't sure, I wasn't that keen, but I say, okay, I'll be open-minded, and I end up spending a good like 3-4 years in Jakarta.
Oh, okay.
And even though, despite of everything, I tried to make the best use of it, and I had a lot of good times.
Mm-hmm.
But I also came to the realization, no, no, if I go at this rate, like, I will not get what I want, or I will not meet the person that, like, now I'm married to my husband, who is Italian.
Okay, okay.
um but then it's kind of like, it's also got a lot to do with, like, how I am, on a deeper level, not as like 100% Asian anymore. I think, I'm just
Mm.
already like quite internationally mixed inside here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
difficult for me to be with, say, someone who is really Asian to the core, like, in terms of like their life culture. And
Okay.
say, I had to actually go to a place like London, where it's metropolitan and like a melting pot of cultures, to meet someone like my husband that I can totally click with, and like, we agree on most things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard, yeah, I said that, well, if I knew it earlier, I wouldn't be spending so much time in Jakarta. But I also, do I regret it that much? I mean, it turns out well, so it's good. But like, at the time, I did like think a lot, like, oh gosh, I should have like moved out earlier. Like, maybe just spend 1 or 2 years in Jakarta. There isn't too much of anything for me, or something. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
But how
But
about you?
again, you
I mean,
always
like,
learn something.
yeah.
But you always learn
You
something
you do, you do, yeah,
when
you
you
do. You always
when you
learn
turn
something,
anywhere.
yeah. It's like, you couldn't, I guess, like, you couldn't always know what you want, like, right from the start, and it takes a bit of trial and error to like discover, and you say, oh, okay, you know what, like, this is not right. And
Right.
I think like the blessing is that, um I realize it, like, quick enough to kind of like say, you know what, like, let's make a plan. Okay, I want to move to where? I want to move to London. That's where I like, and then
Mhm.
I start getting like things moving, and, organize it. And of course, it took a while before I can actually move and find my place here.
Okay.
But how about you? I mean, like you've been in Jakarta for quite a while now, and you
Quite a
never
while.
like go back, right? Like, yeah.
No,
Do
yeah,
you ever
in my
regret it?
case, in
Yeah.
my case, it's a bit different because from the start, when I
Mm.
left Jakarta, I never
Mm-hmm.
really had an intention to live abroad forever. So I always see it as
Okay.
an experience for me. And
Yeah.
maybe back then I was still very much, have this thing in mind. Oh, when I finish my school, I will return to Indonesia. I want to build this country, things like that. But after returning, I still feel the same way, especially the not living overseas part. So I guess in my case, I don't regret it at all. I mean, this is where I want to be, and this
Mm.
is where I want to explore all the, opportunities and the life. So yeah, in my case, the answer is very simple. I never really regret it
Yeah.
at all.
That is really good though. That means like you
Mhm.
know what you want, and then like you didn't kind of come across like more than what you can chew, right?
Mhm, mhm,
I
mhm.
mean, I think like for example, you mentioned about like some friend of yours who are still kind of like probably quite unhappy living there.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, probably they are, in that place, right? It's like they're probably not in the right place.
Yeah, not at all. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, they don't have any choice. I mean, they don't. It's very difficult for them to get a job back where they were,
Mm,
and then their
mm,
situation here also doesn't allow them to actually move, maybe the family and all that. So yeah, unfortunately, that's for
mm.
them. Yeah, not a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like a curiosity, but like what kind of issues do you think are like the biggest for people to, like a big hurdle to, to move back out to the West, for instance?
Uh, Definitely number one, especially after you spend quite a while here again, it'll be very
Mm,
difficult for you to actually, well, first of all, number one is definitely finding a job. It's going to be
mm,
quite difficult, mainly because your X years experience, past X years
mm,
experience are not in that country. So it is no longer applicable
yeah,
because, things change
mm,
and then problems change. And of course, as we knew before, like we discussed earlier,
yeah,
things move a lot faster there. So if you're like
yeah.
spending your past 5 years here, that means that the pace is almost like what,
Oh, wow.
20 years there.
Yeah.
So you've missed 20 years there by spending
Okay.
5 years here.
That is interesting. Yeah. So basically they have a lot to lose, in terms of like, if they leave, right? Because then that means they might not find a good job ever if they return to the West.
It's very difficult
Yeah.
unless
Yeah.
you only spend like 2-3 years here. But if it's more than five, I'm gonna say people
Then
there
it's
don't
like
see you.
practically it's like forget it. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't see you
Mm,
as an asset, or unless you're very very
yeah.
special. I don't know, maybe. But in general,
Yeah.
I would say that's the problem, the biggest problem.
Or probably like, you could get an education, like you can get back into education of some sort, and because I
Yeah.
do know some people who did it though. Yeah.
Uh-huh,
It's
uh-huh.
like they did spend more than 5 years in Jakarta, and then
Mhm.
a friend of mine just went to do like some postgraduate course in America,
Okay.
and from there on, like she just kind of find a way to like, settle. So
Oh,
I guess it's not
yeah.
impossible, but
No, not
like of
impossible.
course, yeah, everybody's circumstance is different. So yeah, it's like maybe, I just mentioned that, just in case maybe one of the audience could like get a light bulb moment from that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, it's not the
They're
end
in
of
the
the
same
world. Yeah,
predicament. Yeah.
there's
No,
always
yeah,
ways.
it's like there's always ways, but it's more like a question of like, are you willing to make that sacrifice to be there, or like, is it worth it in your case, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, what you just said,
Mm.
education is one of the most common way of people to actually go
Mm,
back there. Um,
true. Yeah.
yeah, so
I
you're
mean,
right.
it's legitimate, and yeah.
Mhm.
And you're
Yep,
doing something productive. Yeah.
yep, yep.
I see. I see. Yeah.
So, Mythbuster, do you think the
Okay.
grass is greener? What do you think are the misconceptions about returning home?
This is a good one. Right. Um, there's like the people who are like pro returning to Asia and the pro no, don't return to Asia, right? And it's like
Mm-hmm.
each side have their merit, but like it's kind of like there's definitely like misconceptions around it, right? It's like for example, one of the things that I was told, like, because say like this is mostly my parents, right? Because they so
Mm-hmm.
want me to go back and like
Okay.
live their dream life of like living with daughter and family. um so they always say like Indonesia just have a lot of like what do you call it, like opportunities that doesn't exist in the West or like any developed country, even in Japan, right? Like, so this is not even like Asia, but just Indonesia, like a less developed Asian country.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that a lot of things that usually cost a lot, you can cut corners here, and you can become your own boss. And also the fact that there are less highly educated people, like as a highly educated person, you will be like a great asset, like coming back, you will be like immediately on the top layer of the society.
Yes,
And
it's a lot
while
easier for
this
you.
is, yeah, well, this is all true. I don't think it's bed of roses per se, right? While this is true, a lot of people expect to come back and suddenly be in a high boss position or something, in a very good position to like make a great living and live like a socialite. But this is not true, in my opinion.
Mm.
Those opportunities are like depends on what kind of field that you're in, and sometimes it requires a lot of sacrifice, I think.
Yep. Yep.
Sometimes it's even like on a borderline morally not quite like right kind of place, where you make a decision to like, I know this is not morally right, but if I do it, I'll make a lot of money, kind of. I wouldn't mention what it is, but I think in
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Indonesia
yeah, yeah.
a lot of
Yeah,
this
yeah,
kind of like
definitely.
gigs where you're like, okay, certain, you start maybe like a business in certain plantation, and like, let's cut down all these like rainforest, yeah, and you can kind of like make friends with the local politician and get away with it. I'm sorry, guys. But it's like this is
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
one example, right? I mean,
Uh-huh.
those opportunities are like not for everyone, and like not for all personalities either, in my opinion. So this is like one misconception I can think of. you know
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
from my opinion, I've never actually really
yeah.
seen like I said, because initially when I left Indonesia, I never really wanted to,
Yeah.
stay
Yeah.
there. So I never really
Yeah.
seen Indonesia as the greener grass.
Mm.
But what you just told me, yeah, there's a lot of things that people told me before I returned here.
Mm-hmm.
Although in reality, yeah, exactly what you said depends on some your work, depend on how
Mm.
good you are in seeing opportunities and take it, and which opportunities to take, which you
Yeah.
don't, and then are you willing to take all the risk to go somewhere, and then of course a little bit of luck too. uh,
Yeah.
but you're right, it's not as beautiful as many people told me before I returned here. So
Yeah. How about being in the West? Like, do you think like the grass is greener on that side? Mm.
I actually saw being in the West as being a lot more organized, per
Mm.
se. So your career path is actually very much, clear. And then,
Mm.
you know where you're going to be in 10 years. Although in reality, after living my life until now, I know that that's not the case. There's also a lot of uncertainties there. Um, but
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So it's the same. Everywhere is the same. But the
I
main difference
totally
is,
agree with you. Yeah.
yeah. But the main difference is we're just the boss here. I mean, we're the boss in our country because this is our country. This is home. So that's the main difference.
Right. At least you probably come across less discrimination, right?
Yeah.
Being in Asia, being in Indonesia, especially. It's like, speaking of like that misconception, like, about, you know, the grass is greener in the West. Like, I have come across some really weird ones, while I was in
Oh, yeah?
Indonesia.
Okay.
Yeah, like some friend of a friend was like saying, when oh, it's like only losers who couldn't find a job abroad will return to Indonesia. And I was like, what?
That's what they
Okay,
say.
that's quite a very direct thing to say, to
Mhm.
someone who just returned, and
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, well, okay, it's kind of like I don't really agree with you, but okay, I mean, yeah. So there are like really weird misconceptions, like as if it's a lot easier to it's a lot harder to get a job in the West, so like therefore you must be more competent. In a way it is true, but like I mean, but it's not necessarily like, I mean, what kind of job, right? What kind of position?
Right.
And
Exactly.
if you're not choosy, there are plenty of like low paying jobs over in the West as well. And it's like, whereas like, why would you do that if you go back to Indonesia and you could kind of like make better use of your skills, or like I mean, not everything is like, in my opinion, can be like measured with in terms of like what how do you define the success, right? Like the if you like do you call it like more successful if you work in certain big company in the West, but you never get that promotion ever. It's like
Mhm.
you're kind of like, right? It's like, is
Yeah.
that really better? No, I disagree with that. Yeah, totally.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I think it's also important for a lot of people who are still contemplating to kind of see that no, there's neither place or have like the greener grass. You just gotta figure out what's the best for your situation, and it's not necessarily something that's very obvious from the start. You might
Yes.
have to make a mistake and live in certain place for several years before you say enough is enough, I have to move. And even if you move, like you might end up like not much better than where you start. So like just gotta be
Possible.
willing to, yeah, I think you
Mhm.
just gotta be willing to kind of take that risk and say whatever happens, like you've chosen that path, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. That's true.
Mm.
So basically,
Yeah.
opportunities are everywhere, not only here, but also everywhere else. It's just a matter of how
Mm.
you see it, and are you comfortable doing it? That's
True.
actually
True.
more important.
I think so. Yeah.
Um.
Okay.
So
So yeah,
yeah.
like the next thing is like, okay, Francisca, do you have any advice for those people who are contemplating on returning to Asia?
Oh, okay. Definitely.
Probably in your case, like you definitely know for Indonesia, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
definitely I do. Number
Yes.
one is get ready for the culture shock. It is real. Because a lot of people are like, hey, I'm Indonesian. What is the sweat? Okay, I'm just gonna adapt right away. But hey,
Yeah.
after living there, you will experience a culture shock, big one. And then of course you have to prepare to have high tolerance towards whatever you expected
Mm.
it to be. Um, and then at the end of the day, you're home.
Give an
So,
example. Give an example for that high tolerance because I'm curious.
uh, well, actually, these are the things that we mentioned earlier. How
Mm.
people are doing their things, how, everything are very much short term. They think of solution in for the short. They think of short term solution rather than long term. So,
Mm.
in general, that's how they think in here. They don't plan.
Yeah.
They're
Mm.
a very bad planner, and they always, yeah. For example, if you have a house, rather than building it right, you actually build an okay house, and then if there's any, you need to repair something, just repair it.
Oh,
Things like that.
I I get it. Yeah, they live more day by day rather than like year by year, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what about you? What are the advice you would give to those returning to Asia?
I would advise to do like what I did, which is like when you're in Rome, live like the Romans, right? Do as the Romans.
Mhm.
So it's like I think that yes, even though you might have been like, born and raised in a certain Asian country, but like if you spend a long time abroad, your values, whether you like it or not, like, consciously and subconsciously have changed already, then you're not exactly like the same person as before you leave. So like you come back and you'll suddenly be kind of like, faced with some rude awakening, or like, why are people this way, right? And so but like the key is to kind of like respect that, like as if you're a foreigner who arrived in that country for the first time, and sort of like find a way to make peace with that. I think that's my advice. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely have to adjust and make the best out of everything. Look at it in a good way.
Look at it in a good way, make the best use of your time there, and maybe like, you'll never experience that. I mean, you never know in life, right? You might end up leaving that country like after several years too. You never know. So like just enjoy what you have like in front of you.
Yes.
That period of that part of your life. Yeah. That's my advice. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, Vivian, if you were given an opportunity to return back to Indonesia, would you take it?
Now, right? Now. Now that I am married to my Italian husband and living in London for a while, and kind of like, quite comfortable here, but my answer would be like, maybe I would.
Okay.
So it depends on the circumstance. So like for me, it's like I think I can also enjoy life in Indonesia or any Asian country, but it has to make sense in terms of like opportunity. Like, is there more for us there than like, if we stay here? For example, like I'm pregnant right now, I'm about to have a kid, so like I have to also think about how are you gonna raise this kid and in that environment, right? So say if I have the opportunity to move back to Jakarta for whatever reason, as like either myself or my husband got like a really good deal for like work, and I want to think about, okay, are there schools where we can educate our kids the way we want to, like what kind of housing, and like how long are we allowed to, like how secure is that gig, that kind of stuff, because like once you move, it's very difficult to like move anywhere else as well. So like and it takes a lot of money as well to like move from one place to another, money, time, effort, right? So is it worth leaving behind what we've built over here and go somewhere? So we'll be like weighing it like that, right? It's like pro and con, it's like, of course, because I have a husband, like we will be discussing it, and if we both feel like, what, like it seems like the grass is slightly greener there, it's like from our speculation, then we will go, yeah, sure, I wouldn't resist it, I wouldn't mind it.
So you're quite flexible when it comes to returning.
Yeah. And this is like the same goes for you. Would you actually move back to like say America or like, or UK, because you've also spent time in UK?
I might
like now in this stage of your life. Yeah.
I might, but not right now. So that's actually what I'm gonna say. Maybe when if my son end up working there or living in one of those countries, I might join him. Not in the same house. I'm probably gonna try to be near him.
Yeah.
But
just to explain to the audience that, like, because they don't know how old is your son and like what's the circumstance right now.
Oh, okay. My son is 16 and he's going to university next year. He's thinking about going overseas. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Going overseas, and he also has some sports that he's pursuing. So it's definitely going to be better off if he's studying abroad rather than here. Because besides studying, he also wants to pursue his sports career. So that's the situation. So if he ends up somewhere in one of those countries, or or other countries, if those are the place that I'm comfortable with, I might join him for that purpose. But maybe later on, maybe during my retirement. I even thought about joining my sister in Australia, so I'm not sure. But
I see. Yeah.
But in the meantime, I don't think I'm gonna move back to any of those.
Yeah, you are comfortable where you are, right? Like, you like it in Jakarta. Yeah. Okay, I get it. Yeah. All right.
Guys, thank you for watching our video. We hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned and we look forward to seeing you on the third part of our video.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on this video for midlife spices
You don't even know.